folks. So we're going to get the show on the road. And I'm just going to check my phone occasionally. I keep it on because sometimes people have issues with technology and they're calling me to get a code or something. So if I look down occasionally, I apologize for that. All right. So for a number of you, finishing tonight, you will be graduating.
Woohoo!
And what we will do is we will probably through your assistant governors, we will get you your certificates and your Rotary Leadership Institute pin. Hey, John, how are you? Thank you for joining us. So yeah, so you will get your certificates and your pins, and we will also send out a survey like we do every time we run one of these Rio Grande Academy sessions to get your feedback on what you like, how we can improve. So we will do that. Good morning, Deb, or good afternoon. So after tonight, I will send you the link for that survey. So you'll be getting that either tonight or tomorrow. And Bruce Borton will be joining us a little bit later. He'll walk you through the Building a Vibrant Club module, which is the second one tonight. Does everyone know each other?
Let's introduce.
Yes.
I don't think I know John.
Nope.
John, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll do a quick round robin here.
Okay. John Drewsome. I'm currently AG with the East Action Team, an LG elect, if you will, past president and things like that. Member of the Roswell Sunrise Club.
Awesome. And let's just go ahead and do a quick intro from everyone. Mark, why don't we start with you?
Mark Kleinstuber. I'm president-elect Hobbs Rotary Club, coming in as president in July.
And Bill?
Bill Finley from Carlsbad, relatively new member to Rotary, currently a sergeant at arms, will be involved with community fundraising next year.
Excellent, thank you. Leo?
I'm with the Taos Milagro Rotary Club, and I'm the president-elect. I've served as a treasurer for 4 years, and also I've run our large fundraiser Chili Challenge for 2 years.
Excellent. And Mike and Gail?
Can you hear us, Jeff? We're
Yes,
having
sir.
Okay, great. Mike Morris, Clovis Rotary Club, president-elect.
And I am Gail Tarson, Clovis Rotary Club, current president.
And Deb?
Deb Walker here, and I am the current president of the Hobbs Rotary Club. I think I've met everybody except for John, so I'm going to be working with John next year in our new roles.
Because you're going to be an AG.
Correct.
Excellent. And Mary Ann?
I'm Mary Ann Romero, president-elect of the Santa Rosa Rotary Club.
Awesome. All right, folks. So we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects because I don't understand it. Wait, no, I struggle with it. I understand it. I struggle with it. When I took Rio Grande Academy 5 years ago, this was the module that threw me. I really struggled with this. And I still struggle with why it is a struggle for us to do this well. But I've learned a lot over the last 5 years, and if anything, I appreciate the struggle, even though it's still a struggle. So we're going to talk about public image and public relations. I assume you all have your participant guides. I'm going to go ahead and put up our front page here. So, by the way, if you haven't noticed, in part 3, which is what we're in now and what we were doing earlier this week, the the one sentence here that's under each title, it always starts with, as I further my Rotary journey. This is, part 3 is really the most advanced topics. They kind of feed off of the others. And for the most part, when people take Rio Grande Academy, they take part 1, then they wait about a month or 2 and kind of digest what they've learned, and then they come back and take part 2 and the same thing. So it always, part 3 always starts with, as I further my journey. This is very kind of a personal growth part of RGA. So I will identify opportunities to promote the image of my club and Rotary to the benefit of my community and the world. All right, so that's not really that much of a lofty statement. That's certainly a manageable thing. 3 goals. We're going to discuss public image and publicity as it relates to Rotary and my members and clubs. We're going to explore how our clubs can benefit from a public relations strategy. And we're going to talk about our target audience. And as I said, this can be a pretty heavy topic. So I'm expecting some really good discussion tonight. All right, I'm going to bring up a little notepad so we can take notes. By the way, I sent out, and I'll do it again tonight, if we take notes like this, I'll send out the file just so you can refer back to it. So let's start with the title. Usually we don't spend a lot of time or much time at all worrying about why is it called something. So this session is called Public Image and Public Relations, which suggests that they're not the same thing. So from your perspective, what is the difference between public image and public relations?
Well, Jeff, public image is how other people perceive us. Public relations is our internal way of trying to relate to stakeholders how we want to be perceived.
All right, can you give me the last part of the public relations statement again?
Public relations is how we want others to perceive us, our stakeholders.
Okay. So, and that's right on. Part of why I was so challenged by this is that we don't really do a great job with public relations. I think we're doing a better job now. And I was trying to understand why public relations was hard for us. And 5 years ago when I took this session, and I was still fairly new to Rotary, the only thing I could come up with, but I'll be interested in hearing your perspectives as well, is that we didn't join Rotary to promote ourselves. We joined Rotary to serve or to have fellowship with others. And we tend to be humble. You know, I mean, service above self is kind of a humble way to live. And humble people tend not to promote themselves or promote the organizations that they're with. And I think for some reason we have struggled with not the importance of public relations, but how do we do it in such a way as to not come off as braggadocious or it's all about us, because it's really about who we serve. So that was something that I noted a couple of years ago when I took this. There's a third term that's in our session topics, and that is publicity. So who has a thought about what publicity is?
Well, okay, so publicity to me is things that you do to promote yourself. You look for ways to promote just different aspects of whatever it is you're representing or doing, whether it be a business or an organization.
Okay.
When I hear the word publicity, the first thing I think of is media, like newspaper, radio, social media,
Right.
TV.
So how's this? Because I think that's right. Public relations is what we do. Public image is how we're perceived, and publicity is kind of the medium in between. So we're getting a word out. Others are getting that word through some medium, and publicity is kind of that channel of how it goes through a medium to the recipient of the message. Whether it's social media or television, print media, things like that. They're all connected. And what's I think interesting about this is that what we are trying to do is have a very positive, favorable public image. But we don't always control what the public image is. That is, all of the work that we do in public relations, all of this work going through the publicity channels may still not generate the public image that we are looking for. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But any other thoughts before we move on about the notion of public image, public relations, and publicity? Even that, I think, is a little complicated compared to some of the other topics we've done. You've got this, what are we doing and how are we perceived? What channels do we use? I don't know about you all, but how many of you, let me ask you this, how many of you have someone in your club who has connections with your local media, like your television, your radio, your print media? Any of you have someone who has those connections?
Yeah, we do. In Hobbs.
Okay, so that's a real great asset to your club, that you have someone that knows how to get, let's say, press releases and things like that into your local media. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great asset to have. We were talking earlier about membership recruitment and the idea of target marketing, or sorry, not target marketing. Having target membership classifications. Having someone that is in the media or someone that is very comfortable with the media is quite an asset to have if you've got that in your club. What about social media?
Yeah, myself as well.
And Mike, I know you're into social media quite a bit.
Yes, I use it very frequently. That's always, I think I'm doing it well, and it comes very naturally to me. Used it in business and in order to network around the community. I was new to this community and moved here and started a business, and really Facebook is what allowed me to do that.
Right.
So Jeff, have you seen some of his posts that Mike does for his business, State Farm?
Oh, I see them all the time.
Yeah, so the way I like the way Mike does it, and I compliment him all the time, because he creates interest. He creates fun points without selling to you. And so it draws people in.
Right. So I'm gonna jot down just a couple of statements, and maybe this will kind of get us started on perhaps why this is challenging. Let's see, how does this go? We did this for a charity. A charity received this from us. And the third one is the charity, with our support, ... I put this up here for a reason. If you look at most Rotary messages, if you think about all the press that we get for our work with polio, international, and you think about the type of press we get locally, it typically is not written in first person. We did this. I think, again, perhaps because we're not patting ourselves on the back, we tend not to write things in a very, look what we did, look at how great we are. It tends to be a little bit more passive. So this work was done and Rotary supported it. Or we're eradicating polio and Rotary is heavily involved in that. There's some kind of a way to get the message out, but it doesn't hit you in the face. Does that seem reasonable? Do you tend to agree?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Jeff, I agree with you. It's sort of the trade-off between your personal view of things. We do this not to receive accolades, but because it's our personal way of giving back, paying it forward. But on the flip side of that, we want other people to get involved too, and other, new membership, new people that like what we're doing. So
exactly,
big trade-off.
Right. And there is, I think, the inherent challenge to this whole area. And I think our district is doing better with public relations. A number of the clubs, I think, do a great job getting the word out, and they found a way to craft a message that both lets people know what Rotary is doing without the, patting ourselves on the back and look at how great we are. And I think that's having people that know how to do that is really significant. I think one thing going back to social media is that there's a tendency, I think, in social media to be able to put something out there and let people gravitate to it without pushing really hard. Like if Mike posts something in Clovis, I may run across it and read it and say, oh, that's pretty interesting, Mike. He didn't have to hit me over the head and say, hey, you need to know about this. And I think part of the appeal of social media is that I think it fits a little bit better with this kind of balance we're trying to do. We do want to get the word out, but in this kind of not take a lot of credit way. So I think the future is going to be better for us if we utilize tools like social media, but we also want to use the traditional media as well. I was going to ask Marianne, you're in Santa Rosa, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What is the media like there, and does your club have a presence with the local media in your community?
Yes, we do. We have one newspaper and one radio station, and we're involved with them.
So
we invite them to our meetings and so forth.
So just something to think about, as you're thinking about membership down the road, having someone that can work well with the media is quite an asset, if you can get that. Okay. So when we're thinking about getting a message out, so now we're into the active mode of public relations. The first question here is, who is our target audience? So who do we want to receive our message, and for what purpose?
Yeah, it depends what the purpose is of the what you're putting out.
I'm sorry?
It depends on what the purpose of what you're putting out there.
Okay, so what would be an example?
Is it just a news piece about, hey, we did this for this charity? Then your target audience is the community at large. But if you're trying to reach potential new members, that would. But if you're really going after new members, it might be something completely different.
Okay, this is great. So let's put down community at large and potential members. Right? That's the two you mentioned, John?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at potential members first, because that may be easier for us to flesh out. For what purpose are we getting the message out to potential members? Now, this may be obvious, but we should discuss it anyway. What's the purpose of using public relations to get a message out to potential members?
Recruitment.
Okay. So if we're thinking about potential members and we're thinking about public relations as a recruitment strategy, that may help us craft the message. So if we're thinking about membership, how do we craft a message to appeal, say, I want to find out more about that club?
There's an echo.
Getting echoes.
Let's try muting, please. And let's see if that, okay. How's that? By the way, hearing Jeff echo is not a good thing. Hearing me once is bad enough, but hearing me twice is a real problem. All right, so if we're muting and you want to contribute, just go ahead and unmute and go ahead and contribute. So the notion about recruitment, if we know going in that we've got a message that would likely be appealing to potential members, then we craft the message in such a way as to be attractive to them. So it's almost like, and Mike, you're in the insurance business, you know, when you put out a Facebook post, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you put out a Facebook post, there are going to be certain instances where you're wanting to see some traffic to your business as a result of your post, right? I mean, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So if you know that going in, you craft the message a certain way that people will want to find out more, or they're intrigued, so they want to call you or do something. So there's almost like a subconscious attraction that they want to find out more than what you said in a post, right?
Yeah, you hope so. I mean, that's an awful lot to hope for in a Facebook post, but yes, that's the idea.
That's the notion, right? So you've got that in mind.
Uh-huh.
What about the community at large? What would be the purpose of getting a message out to the general community? Now, the potential members are going to be part of that community, but there's going to be a lot of people in the community that may not be potential members. So what would be the purpose of getting a message out to the community at large other than recruiting potential members?
Raise community awareness.
Telling our story.
Assist in fundraising.
Okay, now we're getting here. So let's think about this. So we get a message out to the community to raise awareness. Okay, so for what purpose? Perhaps it's fundraising. Perhaps it's identifying potential partners in the community that may be able to help us with things we want to accomplish. So
Finding new projects.
Right.
Everything that's out there, maybe there's people out there that really need our help and we don't know it.
Right. So there really are at least two target audiences for our public relations. There may be others, but here's two. The membership recruitment is one, and this, general community awareness, but not just to get the word out, but the idea that to help with projects or fundraising, or, the more the community knows about us, the more they're likely going to perhaps contact us if they have an opportunity, rather than us always contacting them, right?
Yeah, Jeff, for years I heard that Rotary was the best kept secret in our community.
I would agree.
Yep.
I would agree. Although I do think we're doing a better job than we used to, but I think we've got a ways to go. Is there another target audience?
Our own members.
Okay, and what would be the purpose of sending messages or using public relations with our membership?
bring back members who are not attending regularly.
Retention.
Right. You know, just remind them of what's going on the next couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of clubs have bulletins and newsletters and things that they use to kind of keep the membership aware of what's going on. Plus, those newsletters can go out to the community as well.
Yeah, just general overall information about who the speaker is, you know, what we're doing. The one thing about social media, and I don't know if everyone's on it, but it's immediate. You can get that message out. You can have that speaker and then have that picture posted within a few minutes after that speaker. It's right there. You don't have to wait for the newspaper to print.
And it's out there.
Yep.
But the other thing, Deb, is social media often takes on a life of its own. I mean, once a new thread gets started, it's amazing where it leads to, or the discussion that gets. I mean, we could post something as a club, but where it actually ends up with all the ideas that come from everybody, we're often amazed at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something else too, I think, about if you go back to the media and the channels that we're using to get the word out. What typically may be different between getting the word out through social media platforms versus traditional media platforms?
Age group that it hits.
Okay, I heard it.
The age group that.
Age groups. So if we have a genuine interest in recruiting younger people, then we may want to look at social media, because younger people tend not to read newspapers much anymore. It's unfortunate, but so it also becomes a strategy, not just for general recruitment, but perhaps for the younger members as well. And if you're thinking about what types of members are you looking to add to your club? It could be younger members. It could be, let's say it's more female members. Okay, so maybe there's media outlets that female people typically will look at. So public relations, to me, and this module I think talks about this, public relations is really more of a strategy in our clubs. It's a how. But it's a how we accomplish other things that we want to do as a club. And this is something that we talk about quite a bit, that most of our clubs have membership goals that we go in and put them into Club Central and track them and all of that. We also typically will have a goal about, let's say, donations to the Rotary Foundation. That's a pretty common goal. Public relations is more of a strategy to help us accomplish other goals. And it's a really important strategy. But it typically is, you know, because we're not in the business of public relations. Public relations is something that if we do effectively, it'll help us accomplish things that we want to accomplish as a club. Does that ring true? Is that how you all think about public relations in your clubs? More like a strategy?
Yes. Definitely. It's like a map.
I would agree with that.
Well, Jeff, I gotta be honest with you. We've got a couple people in our club who do that for a living: marketing, public relations, newspapers, etc. Yet they're the ones that tend not to want to get involved with the relations of the club, because they do that so they don't want to treat it as a vocation. They want to treat it as something. They want to get involved in some other aspect of the club.
That's interesting. So they don't want to mix their profession with how they can support the club because they have that skill set, that knowledge?
That's the informal conversation I've been having with a couple people lately. I mean, you know, we have a person at our college who does public relations. He doesn't want to do our newsletters anymore or our public relations. He does that 24/7. be involved in fundraising.
So maybe he's just burned out. You know, it's like he does this all the time, and he doesn't want to do it when he's putting on his Rotary hat.
I'm thinking that's the case. He joined Rotary for other reasons than to do his daily job.
But
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I can understand that, but what a great opportunity for him to maybe share that talent with somebody else and help build them up. Because I know that, like, what I like about Rotary is I have an opportunity to learn new things or experience different things that broadens my horizon, if you will. But
I would agree with that, except, you know, I used to work in IT, and the last thing I wanted to do was come home and fix my neighbor's internet connection.
But I think, Gail, I kind of agree with Gail to the point that you certainly want to take advantage of his knowledge, even if he's not the one that's doing it, to just kind of tap the knowledge and have him be a mentor or an advisor. So you can still tap the knowledge. And in fact, it's probably healthy to have other people learn that anyway, but have him kind of be a mentor or something. One thing I found really interesting, if you recall, and I know you've got your participant guide almost memorized, but when we did strategic planning and analysis, I don't know if you recall, and you may have it in your notebooks, but Rotary International has 3 strategic plan priorities and goals. The first is support and strengthen clubs. So this is Rotary International. This is how they're supposed to help us. Support and strengthen clubs, focus and increase humanitarian service, which makes sense. And their third priority / goal is to enhance public image and awareness. That is they see that as one of the 3 most important things that they can do to strengthen Rotary. And yet we still struggle with it. The districts, by the way, does anyone know? Now let's see. We've got folks from Hobbs, and anyone know Mike Anaporta from Carlsbad?
I do.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know him really well.
Yeah. So Mike, to me, was a coup when the district asked him to be the public relations chair, because he's kind of like Mike. I mean, he's on Facebook a lot. He knows how this works. He's got a lot of people that like his page, and they know him through Facebook. And under Mike's leadership, the district was getting a little bit more out there in terms of its media and its message. The problem is that Mike had a job at WIP, and he had some time to work on this. And I guess maybe 4 or 5 months ago, he became the executive director of the Carlsbad Foundation.
Correct. Yep.
And at that point, he unfortunately had to resign as the district public relations chair. And since then, we have not been able to find someone who's willing to kind of take on that role, who has, let's say, a similar skill set that Mike has. I mean, Mike was fantastic. So we are still looking. In fact, I don't think we have a district public relations chair at this moment, but I'm hoping that in the next month or so, we'll get all of that ironed out, because if we don't have someone to craft a message, there's not going to be much of a message.
Well, Jeff, Mike Anaporta was also doing our local Carlsbad newsletter on a weekend over midnight to 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, so I think he got burned out. He took away from his family.
Right. Yeah. We were so excited when Mike took on that role. We were like, yes, we've got our PR champion, and the district's Facebook page is going to get a lot of hits and all that. And it was great, but it unfortunately just didn't last. So hopefully they'll find someone with a similar skill set. Okay.
Well, Jeff, and keep that in mind, because that might be something I would be interested in possibly next year. Let me, if they don't find anybody, that might be something after I serve this term as AG.
Awesome.
So just keep that in their ears.
You got it. And we're going to be talking about that at AGLG training and pets and all of that, so you'll get a pretty good idea of where we are. All right, there's one other thing that I definitely wanted to get into and then leave it open to some additional discussion. Another challenge that I feel like we face is public relations for our club versus Rotary International. Have any of you come across a situation or can relate to the challenge that we have, in a sense, getting the word out about big Rotary, while at the same time getting the word out about little Rotary? Any thoughts on that?
Well, Jeff, I think in particular with social media, the message that we'd like to get out is oftentimes kind of weighty, if you will, and doesn't necessarily work really well with, you know, in the social media realm. Oftentimes the where you have to click see more, people don't. And so I think the message needs to be concise, and it's kind of hard to make the big Rotary message concise.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, you really do want them to click on something to get more information, and yet there's a tendency not to do that.
But you leave it up to them.
Right. In our public relations activities, do you feel like we're doing a pretty good job of balancing getting the message out about big Rotary as well as our own clubs?
I don't think so. I run into people all the time who ask me, what is Rotary?
Right.
I mean, constantly.
Jeff, in our weekly Rotary Local Club newsletters, we often put an article or two about Rotary International. When I do an informal conversation with other members of the club, they often don't read those parts of the newsletter. That's just within the club.
Right. Going back, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I do see a lot of posts by Rotary International frequently, and they're interesting and they're enlightening, but they are weighty, and you do have to read into them. But I think they do a really good job of getting the information out there. Whether or not people are reading the whole article, that's another question, but I think they do a good job as far as keeping it out. I see posts almost every day from Rotary International.
I agree. I think they have done a much better job getting the word out as well. What I was trying to get at is that we in our clubs have, and I don't know if obligation is the right word, but we also want to get the word out about what is Rotary, as well as, and let me tell you something about our club, especially if we're trying to recruit members. But we also want to get the message out about Rotary, even though Rotary International puts out a lot of press releases and a lot of publicity about what they do. But we also want to get the word out because we're all part of the same family. And yet we also want to get the word out about, and here's something that our club is doing in our community that we would like for you to know about. So there's just this kind of balance that we find ourselves in trying to do both of those. Because we do want to answer the question, what is Rotary? That would be valid for all of us, no matter what club we're in. By the way, do all your clubs have like a 1 or 2 minute elevator speech on what is Rotary?
No, we haven't created one formally. I think we all kind of have our own version, but we don't have a formal.
Or at least something that you can all agree on. Or
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea to maybe have a little club assembly or something on if someone asks us what Rotary's about, what would we tell them? I don't know about you, but if I'm a potential member of an organization and I ask 3 or 4 people, what's the organization about, and I get 3 or 4 different answers, I don't know if I would join. An elevator speech.
So I want to hear yours.
Put me on the spot.
'Cause
When
we
I
don't
am
have
asked
one.
when I am asked what Rotary is about, what I say is it's the largest service organization in the world, 1.2 million people, eradicating polio and doing wonderful things in our own community. Something to that effect. A number of people in our club, and this may be typical of others, a number of the people in our club joined for the fellowship, and others joined for the service. I joined for the service. So when people ask me, I tend not to talk a lot about fellowship. And it's not because I don't think it's a good thing. It's just that that's not in my heart. I've made a lot of great friends through Rotary, but that's not why I joined. So my elevator speech is much more about service, because that's where my heart is. Anyone else have an elevator speech?
I gave one the other day to a lady that I was speaking to about the 4-way test essay contest. And she asked, what is Rotary anyway? I mean, she had assigned she's a teacher, so she had assigned it to her students. And by the way, what is Rotary? So I did a quick 60-second, and mine was similar to yours, largest service organization in the world, polio, and then I put that at the back, though. Actually, what I put in the front was more about our club and what we do in our community, the amount of money that we give out each year to different groups around the community, and then our involvement with youth, because as we've discussed in these sessions, our club is extremely focused on getting more youth and getting a youth movement going. So that's kind of what I talked about: Interact, Rotaract, Rotary Exchange, RILA, polio, and pretty much compacted it into about a 60-second speech. And I don't have anything canned, and you can ask Deborah. I don't can anything. You ask me something, and I'm just going to blurt it out right out of the heart and right off the top of my mind. That's the way I am.
Yeah. Okay, we've got about 8 minutes left. There's one other topic I wanted to bring up. It's one of those that unfortunately sometimes happens, and it's worth having a discussion about it. We go back to the very beginning here. Public image is how we are perceived by others. Public relations is how we want others to perceive us. So there are times, and I don't know if these situations have come up in your club, but there are times when outside of our control, some negative publicity occurs. Could be a club member had an issue with their business, and the word, it got out, because as you know, the press loves a meaty story.
Can you scroll up?
I'm sorry.
Can you
Yes.
scroll? Thank you.
Yes. So negative publicity gets out. Doesn't have to be about something the club did wrong, but it may be about a member in the club that something happened. And this is important because for all of the good works that we do, and if we do a really good job of getting that word out, if negative publicity occurs, that can wipe out a lot of the good messaging that we've been getting out for quite a while. It's like that one match burns down the forest, and it takes years and years to grow it back, just because that's the nature of it. So as it relates to public relations, and if you have personal experience, that's fine. Obviously, we don't want to bring up names, but how do we handle any negative publicity that comes our way? What should we do?
we ever had anything like that?
No, but it's not too hard to imagine it happening, and I don't know what to do.
Well, isn't it always best to stay in front of the situation? Press release or something indicating so-and-so, a member of Rotary, has had a problem, and then we release it and say whatever we need to say.
Can you speak up, Bill? You were a little soft.
No, I'm saying stay in front of it by, we need to release something. If a member embezzled funds or something from our organization, we got to stay in front of it. If he embezzled funds from another organization, we don't really have to make a comment about it other than he was a member of Rotary.
Right. Any other thoughts on this? And I know it looks like Bruce has joined us, so Bruce, feel free to chime in as well. Any other thoughts about what to do if there's any negative publicity that occurs?
Well, I think it's a case-by-case scenario. I mean, what Will just said is pretty drastic as far as, someone embezzling funds. That would be the worst case scenario. But if it was something just smaller, I mean, you always, in my role, I always consult with my board members always before I even ever make a move, because I would never do something. I would never take action in my own hands when it benefits the entire club. And then also, it could also benefit the district. So some of those things would have to be worked out with, it could go all the way up if you needed it to. But board members and, members that are of higher stature within the district, it just depends because.
Yeah, I think it does vary based on the severity. I mean, like, for example, if a Rotary does have a lot of business leaders within the organization, so let's say a person has a problem with their business or something and that gets out into the public, from my standpoint, yeah, consult with your board. Stay supportive of that member. I mean, if they're struggling and they're having issues with their business, which is probably going to happen a lot down here with the economy the way it is, if you can, as long as somebody didn't do illegal things, they're just having problems and that publicity gets out there, stay supportive of your members. I mean, those are your comrades, and you got to stick with them, and it'll show them a lot of leadership. They'll stick with you, and you can help them bounce back. So
Yeah.
it kind of goes to what Deb is saying. It depends on the severity of the issue.
First of all, I'm glad that you have not been in situations where you've had to deal with negative publicity. That's a good thing. When it comes to planning, it's not bad to have a plan in case something does happen so that you're not taken by surprise, which is, I think, why it's good to bring it up in a forum like this where you can be thinking about things like this. The only other thing that I've heard when I've done these sessions before is it's important that the message be, what's the word I'm looking for? It just escaped my mind. Controlled.
Yeah.
So that you're not having 10 people in a panic going out and talking about all of this. You want to really control the message. Probably have one person, doesn't have to be the president, that one person is going to be the communicator if you're going to communicate. But unlike in the other situations where we're posting on social media and we're sending out press releases, when there's negative publicity, it's really important to control the message. Make sure that it's really well crafted. Consult with the board members and the other leaders to kind of put all that together, but make sure that it's being controlled. Otherwise, it can actually get worse.
Another thing is, and you're talking about that being controlled, is you really need to have all of your facts in place before you even take any action. Because that's how the biggest rumors get started and things get a little bit more out of control.
Yep.
So.
Well, it is 6:50. As I said, we'll close the session, but I am very intrigued by this whole area, in part because it's not natural for us. but it's really important if we want to be successful. So hopefully there were some good aha moments. I know there were for me. Does the group need a few minutes break before we start the next session?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take 5 minutes and we'll convene at 6:55.